Welcome to today's episode of True to Form with your host, president and co-founder of Crystal Clear, highly regarded speaker, and two-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Tim Sawyer. True to Form is a podcast that highlights leaders making headway in the aesthetic, anti-aging, and elective medical industry. Learn from the experts to discover the secrets of success and pitfalls to avoid when growing all aspects of your elective medical practice. This week's episode is brought to you by Candela, a leading US-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications, including hair removal, wrinkle reduction, tattoo removal, women's health treatments, facial resurfacing, traumatic and surgical scar treatments, body contouring, improving the skin's appearance through the treatment of benign vascular and pigmented lesions, and the treatment of acne, leg veins, and cellulite. Please join me in welcoming your host, the authentic, the transparent, Tim Sawyer.
Hello and welcome to True to Form, the podcast that connects you to the people, technology, and hot topics that shape the elective medical community. Provided to you by Crystal Clear and brought to you by this week's sponsor, Candela, the leading US-based medical aesthetic device company. I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. To our returning guests, welcome back. And for our first-time listeners, we appreciate you joining us and encourage you to become a subscriber. The last episode, we spoke with the founder of the American Academy of Facial Aesthetics, Dr. Louis Melkmarker, who shared his insight behind why organized practices are seeing an increasing consumer demand for aesthetic treatments right now. We jokingly call it the time of the Zoom boom. We're going to talk more about that in the program today. With all that said, we actually have a special returning guest, along with one of her good friends, Christina Imes, who, by the way, has the most downloaded, new people downloading into the podcast, and that's on 13,000 folks, unique folks who have downloaded. So she's royalty on the program. We're happy to have her back. She received her degree in communications from Loyola University, graduated from Goldman Sachs' 10,000 Small Business Program. She has extensive experience in managing medical spas. Her creativity, entrepreneurial, and leadership skills have greatly contributed to the expansion and success of her own spa that she started, Rejuvenate Med Spa, True Male Medical. Christina coordinates business operations and marketing efforts. She is dedicated to staying at the forefront of the ever-changing aesthetics market and strives to keep clients happy. And we also have the pleasure of having Ellen Dumbovic, who brings over 25 years of experience and incorporates her managerial skills, knowledge of the aesthetics field to oversee Dr. Gutowski's practice in Chicago, both from Chicago. Ellen is the point person for patients considering surgical treatments, works closely with Dr. Gutowski to ensure each patient receives exceptional care. Ellen is an integral part of the team, not only with scheduling procedures, but with assisting patients as they make important decisions. And I also know that she humbly runs the place. So with that said, Christina and Ellen, welcome to True to Form.
Well, thank you, Tim. Hey, Tim. Thanks for having us. Yay. Back again.
We are going to have some fun over the next 40 minutes. So let's get the strange stuff right out in the forefront. Both of you are in Chicago. There's a lot going on in Chicago right now. And Christina, talk a little about two things. Number one, the climate, and I know you're just on the outskirts a little bit of Chicago, but the climate in Chicago, the impact it is or is not having on your practice. Also, where you're at with COVID. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, the med spa is actually not in the city of Chicago. We're, I don't know, probably depending on traffic, but say probably 20 to 25 minutes west of actual downtown. So what I'll tell you that I'm seeing, so my practice is located in a pretty affluent suburb, and it's in a shopping mall. And I think because the city is experiencing, so much, horrendous violence, that we're incredibly busy. I mean, we're busier than we've ever been. As soon as we opened our doors first, it has been explosive. And I've been thinking about it a lot, and I guess I'm starting to kind of attribute a lot of it to, well, for me, being in a suburb and everybody wanting to get out of the city. Also, I think people have a lot of money and no one's traveling. Not a lot of people are going out for dinner. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, everybody's on Zoom and everybody's looking at their faces all the time. So, so honestly, for us, it's been, amazing. We did have, again, because we're in a very large shopping mall, we did experience and still honestly do some shutdowns, not based on COVID, but based on, the city being worried about looting. So when we first opened up June 1st, which we could in Illinois, we immediately had to shut down again 2 days later. The entire mall was barricaded. Fortunately, nothing ever did happen out in this, in our actual mall. It kind of happened down the road where one of the big buildings got looted and smashed in. And so again, with the recent violence, happening once again in the city, same kind of thing, but they didn't shut us down. They're just taking precautions. So yeah, in this weird time for us, I mean, we're as I said, incredibly busy. Obviously, everybody's very cautious, hoping that this is not going to all happen again. Where we have to shut down. But so far, so good.
Now, Christina is very excited because we do work together quite a bit. We have two separate practices, but I do come with Kelsey here to her clinic at Rejuvenate Med Spa. And for a period when the shopping mall was shut down, that meant Christina and her staff did not have access to anything in their office. But because of Christina's relationships with local colleagues, she was able to shift appointments to a different location. Even the day that we were supposed to be seeing patients here, it was unknown until 7 a.m. whether or not we could see patients. And our backup plan was then to divert everyone, even Christina's aesthetic team, to our practice in Glenview, which is north of the city.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to ask this, and this question is for both of you. I'm curious. The fact that we're having this conversation, so the aesthetic business, unlike what the casual observer thinks, is actually a brutally competitive business. It is difficult to grow and scale like you guys have both done. Just in the best of times, running an aesthetic practice or plastic surgery practice, it's not easy. And now you have to add to that, oh yeah, by the way, there's lootings and shootings out in front, but we're working through it. I give you guys so much credit. I really do. I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you guys maintain the enthusiasm that you have. And just the matter of fact way that both of you are addressing this. I'm sure there's a lot, maybe some anxiety you're not displaying, but I give you a ton of credit. And so for you, Ellen, where is the plastic surgery practice, and how are patients feeling about coming in and getting, invasive procedures right now? Is that back to where it was? And
well, similar to Christina, we have been incredibly busy. It's been nuts. Now, let me take a step back. We actually were shut down for 2.5 months. We saw this coming and we made the decision to cancel everything even before the governor's mandate. We're very cautious, extremely conservative, but having said that, we had to cancel all surgeries. And despite the fact that we are owned by a plastic surgeon, the public thinks, oh, you are a doctor, you can still operate, but that is not the case. All elective procedures were canceled. People think elective only means cosmetic. That is not the case. Think about hip replacements, joint replacements. All that was canceled for a period of time.
Wow.
So what has happened, there's a huge backlog of procedures that still need to be scheduled at the hospital, that still needs to be scheduled at the surgery centers, which puts the cosmetic elective procedures kind of at the lower priority. But we are, plowing through it, trying to accommodate everyone. Because people have time on their hands, they're not back at work, they don't need to be seen in public, they want to do things now. Whereas before, they were waiting. They didn't want to do it in the summertime because they're out vacationing. Now they've got the time on their hands and they want to do it now. And I have to remind people that we were closed for 2.5 months. There is a backlog. And that's been unique, just kind of having to explain that to our patients. But then they understand it and are just happy to get whatever spot they can and eager to come in.
It's so funny, Ellen, as you say that. I'm literally picturing in my mind, and this is a terrible vision to put in our heads, but someone coming in to get a breast aug or a facelift or something, and saying to a rioter or whatever protest or whatever, excuse me, sir, can you put your bat down for a second? I need to get in there.
Please, I need to get in. Look at me.
And we do a lot of
Hey.
procedures in the office that are minimally invasive, whether it's liposuction, upper lip blepharoplasty, scar revisions, et cetera, that can be done awake. But there's still, guidelines that we are adhering to. We are following what the hospital, what the Illinois Department of Health is stating. All our patients are required to take COVID tests 3 days prior to their procedures, and they do have to self-quarantine in that time period. So that always creates an interesting situation where a lot of these labs are not able to get the results back in time, which can delay or even postpone surgery.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Now, so obvious question, but you have to COVID test everybody, right, when they're getting an elective procedure?
We have made the decision to do that. Absolutely, yes.
Oh, you have? Okay. And Christina, in terms of protocols, do you have to take folks' temperature? Are they required to wear masks? How is that playing out in the waiting room right now, or lack of waiting room, hopefully?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. So, obviously our appointments are staggered completely differently than before. We allow much more time for, really sanitizing and cleaning the room according to the, the guidelines of the state and AMSPA. Everybody is wearing a mask at all times, although I would tell you, Ellen and I are currently not wearing masks.
Yep.
We signed a consent form.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're sitting away from people, but everybody gets their temperature taken when they come into the door. They get a phone call the day before, those questions of, have you traveled outside of the country? Are you feeling ill? Do you have a fever? If so, please do not come in. And then the injectors and the estheticians wear, their N95s and face shields as well, and obviously gloves and, et cetera. So yeah, it's funny because when we were first closed, I would, say to some of my friends, our office is so clean anyway. Who's
Right.
cleaning, what spot, in quotes, if you will, is cleaning their offices with Cavicide every day?
Right.
So it was, before we really knew what was going on. But so in general, it's kind of what they've been doing already, somewhat. But yeah, it's definitely, we're following the guidelines, and, like everybody else does when you go into a restaurant or, you're walking around and you want to go into a store and you have to put your mask on and all that stuff. So
It would seem to me, Ellen, like the folks, almost like the surgical center and at some level the hospital, almost feel like a safer place. And I'm curious, when you're talking with those patients about booking procedures, is there a lot of conversation around, hey, what have you done? Am I going to be safe? Or are folks just kind of not talking about that?
For surgical procedures, they trust that everything is completely safe. We've had phone calls for patients wanting to do injections, and they're asking us what kind of protocols have we implemented to keep people safe. They ask if we wear N95 masks, and we also have the face shields on, and we say, of course we do. We also say that everyone has to wear their mask coming in. They do get their temperature checked. So they're doing their due diligence, and I honestly applaud those patients that are asking those questions, because a lot of them don't. We sometimes have patients showing out a mask on, and we immediately pull one out and say, you must wear this. And they'll say, well, I'm getting my lips injected. But it doesn't matter. You can take it off when it's time.
right.
It does kind of feel like to me, though, regardless of the media outlet, what is happening on the ground, in other words, in reality, what aesthetic consumers their behavior is kind of like, hey, we want these treatments and procedures. We're going to get these treatments and procedures. They're not totally freaked out that they're going to be unsafe coming into the facility. And also, Christina, are you seeing, so there was, to Ellen's point, there's a backlog, and Dr. Gattasi is trying to get caught up on that as fast as he can. Do you think the patients who are coming in now as a result of, kind of people you couldn't get to in March and April, or is this you're seeing new patients, as many new patients for the first time? What's the mix?
Yeah, I would say it is my business today is really, truly no different than it was, we'll say, last year, except I'm busier, right? Which is maybe like a normal progression for a business, right? You hope to have a certain percentage of it, an increase, if you will, and in revenue and in clients. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing a ton of new people, as well as all of our existing people. So, yeah, and it's funny, going back for a second with the whole, how are people, are they feeling comfortable coming out, or, and I would say for the most part, if somebody is coming out to get a Botox appointment, right, the people who aren't comfortable, they're not going anywhere, right? They're not calling to get a Botox appointment. So, everybody else, for the most part, I would say is not really, feeling very anxious or nervous about it. And if they were, they wouldn't be here. So
yeah, and
imagine where you guys would be at if everybody felt comfortable. Think of the demand right now. It's so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say that even when we were shut down, we noticed our online inquiries were increasing, and even to this day, we just have so many online leads that I'm like, wait, how is this possible? Is it because of COVID? Is it because people have more time on their hands? Or the reality is, up to last year, we actually had 2 different websites, and we realized that SEO was being kind of taken one from the other, and we decided to actually integrate our websites into one, and this happened like right before COVID kicked in. But we've seen an uptick, and it's kind of like, it makes me think, is this uptick because now we are in a single website, one company? Is it because of the demand being there, or is it all of the above? But I think for, those people out there that might have multiple websites, obviously we had to kind of scale back our budget and look at, where are we really getting our biggest bang for the buck. Yep. We decided to integrate. It's been the best decision ever. And my fear, because I did the implementation, I was concerned, are we going to be losing leads by doing this? But if anything, we've gained even more. So I'm thankful for that.
Smart. Well, you guys are smart businesswomen. What you're doing. What were you going to say?
People would be confused as to why Ellen would have 2 websites, I would think. So we should say that Ellen actually has 2, very distinct practices. One is a fresh med spa, and the other is Dr. Gutowski Plastic Surgery. So I'm sure listeners would be like, why would she have 2 websites for the same business? So anyway, just to clarify.
It's smart, and it's a smart move. And like I said, I give you guys so much props, man. And the fact that demand is out there speaks volumes. And I was on a call the other day with some folks from the larger pharma companies, the Galdermas and folks, and they're busier than ever. People are ordering more fillers and neurotoxins than at any time before. And I think you said something that's right on, Christina, is that, and not something that any guest has brought up, which is there's not a lot of places for people to spend money like they were before, right? So there's not, look at me, right? So I traveled 40 weekends or 40 trips last year. I haven't flown in an airplane in 6 months. So
yeah,
imagine I'm ready to do something. And, think of all that money that would have been spent over those 6 months. We've got that. So I think that's a pretty interesting commentary on that, right? So in other words, as you're fighting for disposable income, there's less places to go. And I think the trends, every single person that I talk to on the podcast, they're busier now than before. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not people who are struggling, but I think it speaks to, and Ellen brings up a good point, and I'd love her to comment on this. If you weren't, so what I'm seeing is a tale of two cities. If you weren't organized prior to COVID, you were probably in trouble. Meaning if you didn't have an updated database, if you didn't have the ability to email, if you didn't have the ability to text at some level, if you didn't have the right online presence, then you're probably going to struggle a little bit. Would you agree, Ellen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to have everything in place because all of a sudden we have this pandemic thrown at us and we have to adapt. But if you don't have that core foundation there, then to be able to swiftly change and adhere to new systems and policies, you're going to fail. So yes, you need to have that core, all the systems in place. And I think sometimes people get into this business without thinking through everything, without having a business plan, without having a marketing plan, without having their social media presence. Without that, where are you?
Yeah, and I think you have a little bit of an advantage in that, not to diminish what you're saying, in that when you and I met, I could tell right away, you had a solid business background, you had a solid tech background, and I think those skills, same for Christina, what you see now, the folks who are struggling are the ones who, they were an ER nurse or some other, medical position they didn't love anymore and said, oh, I think it'll be fun to open a med spa because I love making friends and injecting. And I think that group is probably not faring as well. And across our client base, we see that. So that I think being organized, having some business discipline, and even making a move to consolidate the plastic surgery site with the med spa site, just thinking through those types of issues are huge right now, huge. And the other thing I wanted to shift real quick, because part of the reason I believe, Christina, that the podcast we had done more than a year ago, I can't believe it, was you had talked a lot about leveraging relationships. And I think people really appreciated that conversation. And it's an underappreciated part of the business. And so how have you, Christina and Ellen, leveraged those relationships, the vendor relationships, your partners, that type of thing, through COVID, and then to get through it? And then the other question I've been asking everyone who comes on the podcast is, what would you like to see the vendor community do to enhance or improve the way that they and we are serving you now?
Interesting. Well, I mean, for me, the relationship side, I mean, that part of the question, I mean, that's my life. That is, I believe in that in every aspect of, I guess, everything that I do. Whether it be raising my children and, having a great network of moms that I can call on and they can call on me. But very much for me in this industry, unlike, I owned a yoga studio at one point in the city, and I was actually a yoga instructor, right? So very different, because in this space, I have no skills that can generate money specifically, right? Directly.
Right.
I'm not here. I'm not an injector. I'm not an esthetician, nor should I be, or do I want to be? Right. So it's all about relationships for me. I mean, it starts, with my receptionist. It goes all the way to Dr. Gutowski, to every single rep that comes into the store. And, my stepdad always makes a joke, Dr. Marshall, who's, my business partner and my medical director, that, I don't have to fall in love with everybody. Like, I'm always like, oh, but I love them. They're so amazing. We went out for dinner, and he's like, why do you have to love everybody? And I said, well, I don't know. I just do. And, during COVID, I mean, let's say, for example, my cool sculpting rep, who I know very well, and she and I have had great times together, and, both professionally and maybe a little bit even, outside of work. But I can call on her and say, hey, you know what? What's going on with that rebate check that that I'm owed, or can you float me some cycles for now, or, and I don't know exactly what we did, or, we didn't obviously need anything specifically at that time. But again, for me, it's the relationships, they're everything. I can't speak enough about it. And when people, don't understand that you can go to your rep and say, hey, you know what? Can you help? We're going to have an event. Can you help us with food? Or when people don't know about that, or just, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Right. Because at the end of the day, I mean, obviously we're all in this together, and, the more money we make, the more money you guys make. So, I don't know, Ellen, if you want to talk to relationships, or if you want to pick up that second part.
Relationships they're so critical, and I value each one of our vendors that we have partnered with, because truly it is a partnership. And it goes both ways. They help us, but then we also help them. And a prime example is I was talking to one of our vendors. This was right before COVID happened, and she'll never push me to buy products, but every now and then she kind of sees like, oh, Ellen hasn't placed an order lately. Let me see what's going on. And I told her, I'm like, I'm fine right now, but if it helps you with your numbers, your quarterly numbers, let me know and I will do it. I can buy X number of vials. And she's like, well, Ellen, it would really bought a little bit more. And guess what? I bought more than what I needed, a lot more. I wasn't concerned about it, but I got delivery in March. Then I got concerned about it because now I'm stuck with a whole bunch of vials that haven't been used. But because of these relationships, the same individual said, Ellen, don't worry about anything expiring. I'm going to help you out and so forth. And like I said, it goes both ways. We all trust each other, and we want to see we all want to see each other succeed. The practice and the best, that's so important.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about what you both said, and I can tell why you're friends and you hang out and you work together, is that Christina, and I've known you now probably going on 7 years, you truly do see the best in people. And you're savvy, but you, in other words, you don't, in blind faith, trust everybody per se, but you do see the best in people. And to Ellen's point, that give and take in a relationship and your vendor man, we don't talk about vendor management or Crystal Clear hardly ever on the podcast, but I'm grateful, first of all, to be working with the two of you. But even in this relationship, with you and I and Crystal Clear, the fact that we've been together now 6 years, Ellen a couple of years, it's give and take, right? And it always amazes me, and it's not just about your software marketing partner, but whether it's a laser partner or to Ellen's point, there's a filler or neurotoxin that's being bought, is that for some reason, there's a huge part of the population that thinks the best way to move forward in life, vendor management, is by every year firing a vendor and bringing on a new one, and somehow that keeps everybody in check. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't know that works, and it's almost like a memo got handed out.
I'm like, no way, I'm not firing our vendors because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
It's true though, they just switch, and I don't know that you're getting ahead with that. Probably more kicking the can down the road. So let me do this. We got a few minutes left, and I want to give each of you a chance to say, okay, you both started your own clinic, you both have been successful, you're growing them, you're both doing amazing. If you were to go back, and I'll start with you, Christina, if you were to go back 7 years and look at the life's lessons that you've learned along the way, what would be some of the takeaways you'd want to give for somebody who's considering starting up a med spa now?
Yeah. Less is more. Yeah. Start small. I see people, we're hiring an architect, we're, buying a building, we've never done this before. No. Don't go out and buy a bunch of machines. Don't go out and, hire a ton of people. I think if I went back, I would really try to hone in on, honestly, the things that make me the most money. Let's say something like cool sculpting, and really try to be that expert in that field, if you will, or not field, but you know what I mean? That expert in that particular service, rather than, oh my God, 1,000 things to choose from. And your marketing efforts get diluted, and it's just challenging to start that way. So, if for anybody who listened to that initial podcast, if you remember, the way I got into this industry was my, medical director and stepfather told me he didn't want to do a med spa. And then next thing I know, he and I have purchased $500,000 in lasers, and so. Anyway, yeah. So for me, I would say less is more is my biggest takeaway.
Yes, definitely baby steps first. Stick with your core, and then expand as the market demands it. So once your patients are asking you for other things, look into those other services. Don't just jump in and buy all these different devices, all these extra products because you're getting a deal for it. There's got to be a demand, because you don't want to lose those core patients. And if they're saying they want more stuff, listen to them.
It's actually really good advice from both of you. What a breath of fresh air. The whole world's going crazy, and you guys are dialed in like nobody's business. And I give you both so much credit. Would it be okay if you guys, Christina, could you give an email? If anyone listened to the podcast had a question they wanted to ask you, can they have an email address? Hey, what you said, and would that be okay?
You know what I want to? I'm going to tease my new business too, and it's not the one you. It's not the one you know about, and actually Ellen doesn't even know about it. But so I'm going to tease it real quick because I'm not ready to totally announce it yet. But so my nurse injector, Desiree Martinez, and I are starting. It's a groundbreaking, innovative opportunity that will hopefully be coming out, say, in the next several months for nurse injectors. Never before seen. Anyway, so anybody who has a question about that.
You've piqued their interest. What would be?
Well, yeah. So here, if people are interested and want to ask me, any questions, they can reach me so it's Christina, my first name, Christina, at medsparejuvenate.com.
Christina at medsparejuvenate.com. And you, Ellen?
Yep, my email is very easy, Ellen, ELLEN, at, it's going to be drgutowski.com, and that's DRGUTOWSKI.com. And if someone prefers Instagram, they could DM me at a fresh med spa.
And where could they follow you, Christina, on your Instagram?
It's Rejuvenate Med Spa.
Rejuvenate Med Spa. Guys, you are awesome. And the best part is it's freaking August.
I know.
Historically sucks.
Woo! This is typically our slowest month of the year. So killing it. Yay.
Unbelievable. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. For those listening, I want to remind you again, it's brought to you by Candela. My name is Tim Sawyer. I'm your host with Crystal Clear. Anybody interested in learning more about Crystal Clear digital marketing, just pop by the website, crystalcleardm.com. That's crystalcleardm.com. Click on the sales button. It'll give you the 800 number. Give the guys a call. They'd love to talk. We have some really cool specials this month. You actually get a free website. So give us a call, and you can talk to them about that. Guys, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we appreciate you coming on. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of True to Form, brought to you by Candela, a leading U.S.-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications. To learn more about this week's podcast sponsor, visit candelamedical.com. And to learn more about your podcast provider, Crystal Clear, visit crystalcleardm.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all your favorite music apps, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and tune in to stay up to date with the newest episodes. Thank you for listening.